I want to try something different today. Instead of just telling you what the science says, I want to walk you through an experiment, a real one. One that has been conducted in clinical settings dozens of times with consistent results, and one that you can replicate yourself at home starting today with nothing more than a pair of comfortable shoes and a glucose monitor. The experiment is simple. Eat a meal. Check your blood sugar 30 minutes later. Then walk slowly for 15 minutes. Check your blood sugar again. What happens next surprises almost everyone who tries it for the first time. We have referenced this throughout the series: the post-meal walk, the GLUT4 activation, the 20 to 30% reduction in blood sugar spikes, but today I want to go deeper. I want to show you exactly what is happening inside your body during those 15 minutes. I want to give you the data from the research, and I want to address every practical question I hear from patients about this habit: when to walk, how fast, what if your knees hurt, what if you cannot get outside? Because this is not just the simplest blood sugar intervention in this entire series. It may be the most immediately measurable one. Let me start with the experiment itself. In 2016, researchers at the University of Otago in New Zealand recruited a group of adults with type 2 diabetes and gave them a continuous glucose monitor, a small device that measures blood sugar every few minutes automatically. The participants ate standardized meals and then either sat for 30 minutes, walked for 30 minutes at a moderate pace, or did 3 short walks of 10 minutes each after breakfast, lunch, and dinner. The results were published in the journal Diabetologia, and they were striking. The group that did 3 short 10-minute walks after each meal showed a 22% greater reduction in post-meal blood sugar compared to the group that did a single 30-minute walk at another time of day. Read that again. 3 short walks of 10 minutes each taken immediately after eating outperformed a single continuous 30-minute walk taken at another time of day. Same total duration, dramatically different metabolic impact. Because the timing immediately after the meal when blood sugar is rising made all the difference. This is what the experiment reveals, and understanding why it works makes it even more compelling. Let me take you inside the body during those 15 minutes. You have just finished eating. Your digestive system is breaking down the carbohydrates in your meal into glucose. That glucose is crossing the wall of your small intestine and entering your bloodstream. Blood sugar is beginning to rise. In someone with insulin resistance, this rise will be steeper and will stay elevated longer than it should. The pancreas will release a larger than ideal amount of insulin. The glucose will not be absorbed by cells efficiently, and the post-meal peak will be high, sometimes much higher than it would be in a person with healthy insulin sensitivity. Now you stand up and begin walking. Within the first 30 to 60 seconds of walking, something important happens in your muscles. Your muscle cells contain proteins called GLUT4 transporters. Under normal resting conditions, most of these transporters sit inside the cell, waiting. They are not active on the cell surface. They cannot absorb glucose unless insulin unlocks the cell membrane to let them through. But muscle contraction changes everything. When a muscle contracts, when it works, it sends an internal signal through a pathway involving a molecule called AMP-activated protein kinase, or AMPK. This signal does not require insulin. It bypasses the entire insulin receptor pathway entirely. AMPK activation caused by muscle contraction moves the GLUT4 transporters from inside the cell to the surface of the cell membrane. They dock at the surface and begin pulling glucose from the bloodstream directly into the muscle cell. No insulin required, no insulin receptor, no lock and key. The door opens from the inside. This is why post-meal walking works even in people with severe insulin resistance. The normal pathway, insulin signaling the cell to absorb glucose, is impaired. But the exercise pathway, muscle contraction signaling GLUT4 activation, remains functional regardless of insulin sensitivity. The muscles are open for business, and the glucose that would otherwise be circulating in the bloodstream, contributing to the post-meal spike, has somewhere to go. Now think about the timing. Blood sugar begins rising within 15 to 30 minutes of starting a meal. It typically reaches its peak between 60 and 90 minutes after eating. If you begin walking immediately after finishing your meal, you are activating the GLUT4 pathway at exactly the moment when glucose is beginning to flood the bloodstream. You are opening the drain valve before the pool overflows. The earlier in the post-meal window you begin walking, the more glucose you intercept before it reaches its peak. A walk begun 5 minutes after eating catches more of the rise than a walk begun 45 minutes later. This is why the instruction is, begin walking as soon as you finish eating. Not after you have had coffee, not after you have sat for 20 minutes. Finish your last bite, stand up, and start moving. Now let me give you the numbers because I know that many of you who are watching this are tracking your glucose carefully and numbers matter. Multiple studies examining post-meal walking in people with type 2 diabetes and prediabetes have found consistent results. A 2013 study published in Diabetes Care found that a 15-minute walk after each meal reduced the 24-hour blood sugar profile significantly in older adults with impaired glucose tolerance, with the greatest effect observed after the evening meal. A systematic review published in Sports Medicine in 2020, which analyzed 12 separate studies on post-meal exercise timing, concluded that exercise performed within 2 hours of eating produced significantly greater reductions in post-meal blood sugar than exercise performed at other times, and that light walking specifically produced reductions of between 20 and 35% in post-meal glucose peaks across studies. 20 to 35% from walking slowly for 15 minutes. To put that in concrete terms, for someone whose blood sugar typically peaks at 180 after a meal, a 25% reduction from post-meal walking means a peak of approximately 135 instead. That is a difference of 45 points at every meal, every day, accumulated across weeks and months. That difference is reflected directly in the A1C, and the effect compounds with the second meal effect we discussed in an earlier video. When you walk after lunch and reduce the post-lunch glucose peak, you are also creating better metabolic conditions for dinner. The short-chain fatty acids produced by gut bacteria during digestion are better able to perform their glucose-regulating functions. Your insulin sensitivity is higher going into the evening meal. The dinner glucose response is blunted before you have even changed anything about what you eat at dinner. Walking after lunch makes your dinner glucose better. Walking after dinner makes your morning fasting glucose better. The benefits cascade through the day in ways that go beyond the immediate reduction in the post-meal spike. Let me now address the practical questions, because I hear them from patients consistently and they deserve direct, honest answers. The first question is, how fast do I need to walk? The answer is, not fast at all. The GLUT4 activation mechanism is triggered by muscle contraction, not by the intensity of that contraction. Slow, comfortable walking, the kind where you can hold a full conversation without breathlessness, is sufficient to activate the pathway meaningfully. In fact, for some people, very brisk walking or jogging after a meal can cause digestive discomfort because the body is simultaneously trying to direct blood flow to the muscles for exercise and to the digestive system for absorption. Slow walking avoids this conflict. The muscles are gently activated. The digestive process continues without interruption. Slow, comfortable, conversational pace. That is all that is required. The second question is, what if my knees hurt or my balance is not reliable? This is a real concern for many of my patients, and I want to address it with respect rather than dismissal. The goal is lower limb muscle activation, specifically the large muscles of the calves, quadriceps, hamstrings, and glutes, which are the primary consumers of post-meal glucose. Walking activates all of these simultaneously, but walking is not the only way to activate them. If outdoor walking is not possible due to joint pain, balance issues, or weather, consider these alternatives. Marching in place slowly in your kitchen or living room, lifting alternating knees while holding onto a stable surface. Slow seated leg presses, sitting in a chair and pressing your heels firmly into the floor while tightening your thigh muscles repeatedly. Even chair-based calf raises, sitting upright and rising onto your toes rhythmically, activate the gastrocnemius and soleus muscles of the lower leg, which are significant glucose consumers. A small study published in the Journal of Physical Activity and Health found that brief bouts of standing with periodic calf raises done every 30 minutes produced measurable reductions in post-meal blood sugar in sedentary adults. The calf muscles, when activated through simple raises, were absorbing glucose meaningfully. If you cannot walk, raise your calves. If you cannot stand, press your heels. If you cannot do either comfortably, please discuss with your doctor what movement alternatives are safe and appropriate for your specific situation. The mechanism is what matters. Any movement that contracts the large muscles of the lower body will activate GLUT4 transporters and produce some degree of post-meal glucose reduction. The third question is, what if I cannot go outside after every meal? You do not need to go outside. Walking around your living room works, walking slowly down the hallway and back works, walking to the mailbox works. The GLUT4 transporters in your muscles do not know whether you are walking through a park or walking around your dining room table. They respond to muscle contraction. If weather, safety, or mobility limits outdoor access, walking in place inside is entirely valid. The important variables are the timing immediately after eating and the duration, at least 10 to 15 minutes. The location is irrelevant. The fourth question is, will this interfere with digestion? The concern here is understandable. There is a common belief that you should rest after eating to allow proper digestion. The science does not support this belief for gentle walking. Slow walking after meals does not impair gastric emptying or intestinal absorption. Multiple studies have examined this directly and found that light post-meal movement at a comfortable pace does not disrupt the digestive process. In fact, some research suggests that gentle movement after eating may slightly accelerate gastric motility, the movement of food through the digestive system in a way that is beneficial rather than harmful. What does interfere with digestion is intense exercise, running, vigorous cycling, high-intensity interval training. These activities redirect blood flow away from the digestive system toward the muscles in a way that can genuinely disrupt absorption and cause discomfort. Slow walking does not do this. Your digestive system continues working normally. Your muscles are gently activated. The two processes coexist without conflict. The fifth question is, should I walk after every meal, or is one walk per day enough? The research is clear on this point. The effect is meal-specific. Post-meal walking reduces the blood sugar spike from that specific meal. A walk after lunch reduces the lunch spike. It does not carry forward strongly enough to also reduce the dinner spike. Each meal creates its own glucose curve. Each post-meal walk addresses the curve of that meal. This is why the most impactful approach is to walk after every major meal. Breakfast, lunch, dinner. 3 short walks, each of 10 to 15 minutes, produce better blood sugar outcomes across the day than one longer walk at a different time. That said, if 3 walks per day is not realistic for your schedule, begin with the most impactful one. The research consistently shows that the post-dinner walk has the greatest effect on blood sugar management, because post-dinner glucose levels directly influence overnight fasting glucose and the morning reading. If you can only commit to one, make it the walk after dinner. Then, when that becomes natural, add the post-lunch walk. Then the post-breakfast walk when you can. Build the habit progressively. Consistency matters more than perfection. The sixth question is, will I see results immediately? Yes. In most cases, the reduction in post-meal blood sugar from a single post-meal walk is measurable the same day. If you have a glucose monitor, or if you have access to one, I encourage you to run the experiment yourself. Eat your regular lunch. Check your blood sugar 30 minutes after finishing. Walk slowly for 15 minutes. Check again. In most people with type 2 diabetes or pre-diabetes, the reading after the walk will be meaningfully lower than the reading before it. Not dramatically lower in every case, but consistently measurably lower in a way you can see on your own monitor. This immediate feedback is one of the reasons this particular habit has such strong adherence among patients who try it. The impact is not theoretical, it is visible. You can watch your glucose curve change in real time. Let me tell you about Vincent. You may remember Vincent from the protein threshold video. 71 years old, former civil engineer, precise, data-oriented. His A1C had been creeping upward slowly despite careful eating, and we addressed his protein distribution across meals. After that conversation, Vincent came back with his glucose log and showed me something he had been testing on his own. He had begun walking for 15 minutes after each meal 3 weeks earlier, immediately after our conversation about post-meal movement. He had been tracking his post-meal readings carefully before the walk and at various intervals afterward. He laid his log on the table and pointed to the numbers. Before implementing the post-meal walk, his average post-lunch blood sugar peak was 162 at the 60-minute mark. After 3 weeks of consistent post-meal walking, his average post-lunch peak at the same 60-minute mark was 124, a reduction of 38 points, consistent across 3 weeks. On the same lunch foods, same portions, same medication, he had also noticed something he had not expected. His post-dinner readings, which we had not specifically targeted through any other intervention, had improved as well. His morning fasting glucose, which had been a persistent source of frustration, had dropped by an average of 14 points over the 3 weeks. He said, "I expected it to help after the meal I walked after. I did not expect it to affect my morning number, but there it is in the log. That is the cascade effect. Lower post-lunch spike, better metabolic environment entering dinner. Lower post-dinner spike, better overnight glucose baseline, lower fasting morning reading. 3 15-minute walks, changing numbers across the entire day." He then said something that I have thought about many times since. I have been a civil engineer for 40 years. If someone had told me that a 15-minute slow walk could do more for my blood sugar than a medication adjustment, I would have asked to see the data. Now I have the data. and it is sitting right here in my own notebook. That is the experiment, running not in a research lab, running in Vincent's life. Let me now give you the complete practical protocol for implementing post-meal walking so that it becomes automatic rather than effortful. The trigger is the last bite of the meal. When you swallow the last bite, that is the signal. Not 5 minutes later, not after you finish your tea. The last bite is the cue to stand up. Do not clean the dishes first. Do not sit and rest. Stand up. Put on whatever shoes you prefer. If you are at home in slippers, those are fine. Go outside if you can. Walk around the block, down the street, or simply around the yard. If you cannot go outside, walk inside. Down the hallway, around the dining room, around the living room, in whatever space is available. 15 minutes, slow pace. Comfortable conversation pace. When the 15 minutes are complete, return to whatever you were doing. The dishes can wait 15 minutes. Your afternoon can begin 15 minutes later. Your evening program can start 15 minutes later. The blood sugar improvement you gain from those 15 minutes is worth the delay. Your glucose monitor, if you use one, will confirm it. For habit anchoring, connect the walk explicitly to the end of eating. After every meal, I walk. Not sometimes, not when I have time. After every meal. Make it as automatic as washing your hands before eating, a non-negotiable part of the meal ritual. Before I close, the reminder I include because it is always relevant. If you are on glucose-lowering medication, consistent post-meal walking will reduce your post-meal glucose levels. This is the desired outcome, but if your medication was calibrated for higher post-meal glucose levels, the combination of medication and improved glucose management from walking could potentially cause glucose to drop further than intended. Please tell your doctor that you are implementing post-meal walking consistently. Let them monitor your readings and adjust medication if appropriate. This is a good problem to have, but it should be managed with medical supervision. If someone in your life has been told to exercise more for their blood sugar but finds the idea of long workouts overwhelming or inaccessible, if they believe that meaningful improvement requires gym memberships and vigorous effort they cannot sustain, please share this video with them. 15 minutes, slow, after eating. The research is clear, the mechanism is well understood, the results are immediate and measurable, and it requires nothing except standing up at the right moment. Next week, we are finally going to have the conversation this entire series has been building toward: sleep and insulin resistance. Why poor sleep is one of the most powerful drivers of everything we have discussed: blood sugar dysregulation, insulin resistance, hunger hormone disruption, cortisol elevation, and muscle loss. What happens to your glucose after a single bad night, and what you can begin doing tonight to protect your sleep as the metabolic intervention it truly is. It ties the whole series together. Do not miss it. Subscribe, hit the bell. I will see you next week. I am Dr. Sterling. Take care of yourself, and the next time you finish a meal, stand up. 15 minutes. Your glucose curve will look completely different on the other side,